Before DC became the city it is today, it was a sprawling wetland that supported great biodiversity for plants and animals. Over the last few centuries, that wildlife has been reduced to just a few controlled areas, but thanks to the hard work of local residents, a lot of that wildlife has survived. Despite urbanization, plants and animals have found refuge in Sligo Creek. It is a sub-tributary that reaches from Wheaton, Maryland, down to Prince George's County, where it eventually converges with the Northwest Branch. The creek's close proximity to residential areas, while depriving it of the protection it once had, gives way to a symbiotic relationship for both the community and the wildlife.
I'm an ornithologist at the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center, where my job is to study the survival and movement of birds around the greater DC area and really across most of the eastern United States.
Through research like his, it has become clear that there is an unexpected importance to urban water features like Sligo Creek.
Sligo Creek is really cool on a lot of levels. One of the ways that it's cool is a creek resource like this. When it comes to urban and suburban environments, water is actually one of the big limiting factors. But we have these water features like the linear features like this in Rock Creek, and they end up being a stable water resource. We'll have the birds from the neighborhoods actually making these broad movements to the creek and back. And birds in general are really territorial. They're always fighting with each other, not around the creek. They get to the creek and they all have this common resource that they're not going to deplete. So it doesn't make sense for them to guard that resource. Parks like this one, they're important on a lot of levels. They're important from a natural history perspective and ecologically, but they're also important to give people access to making real observations in nature.
The same urbanization that allows for an accessible landscape also leads to a shift in the bird's most prominent feature, their song.
I have a sound recording device that I have up in the woods over here. So if you listen, currently we've got that roar of the highway. That roar of the highway is always there, and we can pick up just those specific frequencies. We know that some birds will actually shift their song around it, sing a little bit higher so they can be heard above the din. We can think about birds vocalizing as sort of a method of fighting, right? More than anything else, they're vocalizing to defend their territory, right? They can establish their territory without having to fly around and get in some sort of actual combat with other birds. Those birds that are able to adjust their song are able to sort of get around the problem with how they sing. With those that can't adjust their song, they're not getting around that problem.
Sligo residents have banded together to fight some of these issues.
My name is Kit Gage, and I've been working with Friends of Sligo Creek since 2005, and I've done a lot of work, especially with their stormwater committee. Sligo Creek is a really, really, really well-loved creek in a pretty suburban urban area, which means that unlike some other parks, there isn't a huge forest buffer. There's more heat, there's more fecal coliform, but in all of those categories, Sligo Creek is more polluted than the bigger creeks like Northwest Branch or Rock Creek. With local work, with hyper-local work, people who live along it and walk along it and appreciate it can themselves make a noticeable difference in the work that they do. So it's in some ways more gratifying for people than trying to do national or international work.
We're using the same techniques that we use in the deepest of forests, that we use in pristine prairies and grasslands. We're using these same techniques to monitor birds, whether it's banding, whether it's putting up automated sound recorders, whether it's tracking. But we're doing it here, essentially in the middle of the city, surrounded by folks walking by on trails and things like that, going about their everyday lives. It's sort of this funny dichotomy that we live in, that we're doing this research right around people. They don't really know. We're just weirdos in the bushes.